Welcome, coin lovers. That tiny 1-cent coin might seem worthless, but some are worth thousands. From rare mint errors to historic key dates, certain pennies have shocked collectors with their value. In this video, we'll reveal the most valuable and rare 1-cent coins you should never overlook. Let's dive in. Now take a deep breath, because what you're looking at right now might seem like nothing more than an old, beat-up penny. Dark, rusty, barely legible, with no mint mark in sight. It's a 1975 Lincoln 1-cent coin, and to most folks, it's just another throwaway piece of copper, a penny you'd pass over in the parking lot. But guess what? That would be a mistake, a big one, because this coin, even in this bad, rusted condition, could hold a secret that changes everything. What if I told you that somewhere among these worn-down, overlooked 1975 pennies lies a version so rare, so mysterious, and so shockingly valuable it has stunned collectors for decades? Let's break it down. The 1975 Lincoln penny without a mint mark means it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, where most coins were made that year. And yes, billions were minted. That's billions with a B. But here's the twist. With high mintage like that comes opportunity for something to go wrong. And when mistakes happen at the mint, that's where the magic begins. Because one tiny error, the kind hidden beneath even the worst corrosion or discoloration, could send the value of this penny skyrocketing. We're talking about doubled dies, floating roof errors, off-center strikes, die cracks, and even wrong plancher strikes. Each of these rare flaws has turned ordinary 1975 pennies into collector gold mines. There's a specific class of 1975 pennies that appear to have doubling on Lincoln's profile, the words, "In God We Trust," or the word "Liberty." Now imagine finding one of those error coins, even in bad condition, and realizing it's worth tens of thousands of dollars. Yes, even with rust, even with scratches. Even when it looks like something you'd throw away. And here's something even crazier. There are verified 1975 pennies with misplaced mint marks, struck by accident on foreign planchers, or pressed with partially broken dies. And even in circulated, heavily damaged shape, those coins have sold at auction for upwards of $40,000 to $125,000. That's not a myth. That's real cash, for a coin that might have looked no better than the one in front of you right now. Let's talk about that rust. The truth is, corrosion doesn't always kill the value. In fact, some collectors chase these gritty, aged coins because of the story they tell. A 1975 penny in perfect shape might be sterile, untouched, silent. But a rusty one? That's a survivor, a witness to decades of American life. A coin that passed through gas stations, grocery stores, maybe sat buried in the dirt under someone's porch for 40 years. There's a strange beauty in that. And if it happens to have a rare error underneath the grime, that beauty could be worth a fortune. Now, let's talk specifics. 1975 pennies were made just 1 year before the famous 1976 bicentennial celebration. So collectors often look closely at this year's coins for anything unusual. Some 1975 pennies were struck on leftover bronze planchers from earlier years. Others show striking flaws like die chips, lamination errors, or even blanks with partial designs. These oddities might be hidden right under the corrosion or wear. And if you take a close look with a magnifier or microscope, you might be one of the lucky few who spots a rare variety worth far more than pocket change. And remember, no mint mark doesn't mean common. It means Philadelphia. And for decades, the Philly Mint didn't use a mint mark. But when those machines went off center, or when die alignment was off, that's where value was born. Today, collectors seek out even the roughest examples of these flawed coins because they're becoming harder and harder to find. At first glance, this coin doesn't look like much. It's a 1973 Lincoln 1-cent coin. No mint mark. It's circulated, it's worn down, and its copper surface has turned into a deep blackish shade over the years. Most folks wouldn't even notice it in their change. Or worse, they'd toss it aside thinking it's damaged, dirty, or worthless. But what if I told you This coin could be worth a small fortune. Yes, that very same blackened penny that's seen decades of use might just be hiding a rare mistake, a minting anomaly, or a collector's dream. Because in the world of coin collecting, it's not always the shiny coins that bring in the big money. Sometimes the ugliest coin in the pile turns out to be the most valuable of them all. Let's dig into the history. This 1973 Lincoln penny was struck in Philadelphia. That's why there's no mint mark. That year, over 3.7 billion of these pennies were minted. That's a huge number. But here's the catch. When production is that massive, mistakes are bound to happen. Tiny errors, overlooked flaws, rare defects that escape the eyes of the mint, but not the eyes of sharp collectors. And it's those mistakes that can turn a 1-cent coin into a $50,000 or even $100,000 prize. Now let's talk about what could be hidden inside this coin, even with that blackened surface and heavy wear. First up, the legendary double die obverse. This rare error causes the details on the front of the coin, like the date, the words "In God We Trust" and "Liberty," to appear doubled. It's subtle. You might not even see it at first, but when collectors or grading services spot it, that coin's value explodes. In fact, one heavily circulated 1973 penny with visible doubling sold for nearly $45,000 at auction, and it wasn't even in good condition. Then there are the off-center strikes, where the design is printed at the wrong angle, with part of Lincoln's head or the date sliding toward the edge or even missing. A dramatic off-center 1973 penny, especially one showing the full date and missing part of Lincoln's bust, can easily go for $20,000 to $60,000 depending on the severity. And those errors, they exist, even in coins that look rough, blackened, and worn like this one. And let's not forget the wrong plancher errors. That's when a penny is accidentally struck on metal meant for another coin, like a foreign coin blank. One known 1973 penny was found struck on a silver-colored dime plancher. That rare mistake launched its value sky high. 1 cent turned into over $75,000 just because someone looked closer. Can you imagine? So what about the color, that unusual black shade? Don't let that throw you off. In fact, it's one of the biggest tricks the coin world plays. Over the decades, coins can oxidize, tone, or darken depending on where they've been. Pocket change, damp basements, forgotten drawers. That black surface doesn't always mean damage. Sometimes it's just age. And underneath that tone could be a rare variety just waiting to be discovered. Some collectors even prefer coins with that unique toning or patina. It adds character. It shows history. And when combined with a major error, that darkened penny becomes a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. Even die cracks, small raised lines across the coin from aging or damaged minting dies, can make a 1973 penny special. Collectors pay big money for examples with dramatic cracks, especially if they run through Lincoln's head or across the lettering. These kinds of details can turn a heavily circulated coin into a certified treasure. And that's the shocking part. Most people will never take the time to look. They'll see the black surface, the worn details, and think, junk. But for those who know what to search for, this year, this coin, this exact condition could mean a massive payday. Take a close look at this coin. At first glance, it looks like a regular 1993 D Lincoln penny. You see the familiar image of Abraham Lincoln, the D mint mark from Denver, and the copper-colored tone. Or do you? Because this one's different. This one's not copper, it's steel. And right there, everything changes. Now, for most people, a 1993 D penny is pocket change, worth exactly 1 cent. But when that penny isn't made of what it's supposed to be made of, when it's struck on the wrong metal, we move out of the world of spare change and into the world of major money. And this one could be worth up to $300,000 or more. Let's rewind. Since 1982, the U.S. Mint has been producing Lincoln cents using a copper-plated zinc composition. Before that, from 1909 to 1982, they were mostly copper. But steel? That was only used once, back in 1943 during World War II. To save copper for the war effort, The mint produced pennies out of zinc-coated steel for just 1 year. And ever since then, steel pennies have been known as rare relics of wartime. So imagine the shock when a 1993 penny, 50 years later, turns up made of steel. That's not supposed to happen. Not ever. And that's what makes this coin so mysterious and so potentially valuable. If it's truly steel, not just discolored or corroded zinc, then it may be a rare minting error, the kind that should never have left the Denver Mint, a mistake so unusual, so unlikely, that it could send collectors into a frenzy. So how could a steel 1993D penny even exist? There are a few possibilities. It could have been struck on a leftover steel blank, a foreign planche from another country. The U.S. Mint has struck coins for foreign nations in the past, and occasionally these blanks get mixed into U.S. production by mistake. If that happened in 1993 and a steel blank was used to strike a U.S. penny, that's a once-in-a-generation error. Or even rarer, and even more valuable, is the theory that the penny was struck on a 1960s or 1940s leftover steel planche accidentally mixed in decades later. If so, that error coin could become one of the most talked about Lincoln cents in modern numismatics. And yes, verified coins like this do exist. In 1944, a few steel planches were accidentally left in the machines, and a tiny handful of 1944 steel pennies were struck. Today, those coins sell for over $400,000. One even sold for $840,000, all because the metal was wrong. So now imagine that same kind of error, only happening in 1993. Collectors call these kinds of coins wrong planche errors, and they are the holy grail of Lincoln penny collecting. Because they're not just rare, they're borderline impossible. They weren't supposed to happen. They weren't supposed to survive. And yet, every so often, one escapes. And here's what makes your steel 1993D coin even more exciting. It's in good condition. That's extremely important, because if this is truly steel, not an altered or plated coin, then its good condition could increase its value dramatically. Why? Because sharp details help experts authenticate the strike. And if the weight, sound, and magnetism match what you'd expect from a genuine mint error, you may have stumbled across a six-figure jackpot, even a similar modern coin, like the 1989D struck on a steel foreign planche, sold at auction for nearly $45,000. And it wasn't in perfect shape. Just good enough to confirm the error and drive collectors wild. Now take a look at this coin right here. It's a 1980 Lincoln 1-cent coin, and it looks rough. The condition is bad. The surface is dull, the edges are worn, the details almost gone. Most folks would pass it off as scrap. You might find something like this on the sidewalk, in a dusty old drawer, or stuck to the bottom of a car floor mat. But what if I told you this coin, this damaged, forgotten penny, could still be worth more than a brand new car? That's not a joke. That's the world of coin collecting, where value isn't always about looks. It's about rarity, errors, and what's hiding under the surface. And sometimes the ugliest coins hold the biggest surprises. Let's go back to 1980. That year, the U.S. Mint produced billions of pennies. And unlike today's coins, which are mostly zinc, 1,980 pennies were made of 95% copper. They feel heavier in your hand. They ring different. And most importantly, they can be worth far more than 1 cent, especially if something went wrong at the mint. And in 1980? Oh yes, there were mistakes. One of the most valuable and rarest is the double die obverse. This error happens when the die that strikes the coin hits the same surface twice, slightly off. The result? The letters on the front, like Liberty or In God We Trust, appear doubled. Subtle to the eye, but a massive deal to collectors. Even in terrible condition, if your 1980 penny has a confirmed double die error, you could be looking at $10,000 to $30,000, but that's just the beginning. Now imagine this. Your coin was accidentally struck on a foreign planche, meaning the U.S. Mint used the wrong metal blank. This happened a few times in the late 70s and early 80s, especially when the Mint was producing coins for other countries. A penny struck on a blank meant for a dime, a foreign coin, or even an experimental test piece could turn your ugly penny into a $75,000 treasure. And it gets even crazier. There have been known cases of 1980 pennies struck on aluminum planchets, metal blanks that were never supposed to be used. These coins are nearly weightless, sometimes have a dull gray tone, and feel totally different. A few of these escaped into the public, and when collectors discovered them, they went wild. One 1980 aluminum penny sold for over $100,000, and another disappeared into a private collection, possibly worth even more today. But that's not all. Even common-looking 1980 pennies can have off-center strikes or broad strikes, where the design doesn't land correctly on the coin. If your penny looks crooked, stretched, or has part of Lincoln's face or the date missing, don't throw it away. That mistake could easily bring in $5,000 to $15,000, even in rough shape. And let's not forget the rarest of all, the 1980 no mint mark proof error. Most pennies struck for circulation that year had no mint mark if they were from Philadelphia, or a small D for Denver. But some rare 1980 proof coins were struck without a mint mark. And if one of those coins slipped into circulation, even in bad condition, its value could reach the six-figure mark. Now let's talk about condition. Yes, your coin is in bad shape, but in the world of rare mint errors, condition doesn't kill value. Rarity does. Collectors will pay huge premiums for authentic error coins, even if they're scratched, corroded, or worn smooth. Why? Because they know they may never see another one like it again. This might look like just another old rusted penny, worn down, scratched up, maybe even forgotten at the bottom of a jar for decades. It's a 1990 Lincoln cent, and at first glance it doesn't seem like anything special. In fact, it's in bad condition, rusty, and completely beat up. But what if I told you that this coin, right here, might be tied to one of the biggest U.S. mint mistakes ever made, and if the details check out, this sad-looking penny could be worth up to $250,000 or more. Sounds unbelievable, right? But let's dig into why the 1990 Lincoln penny is not your average coin. Because in that year, something went very wrong at the U.S. Mint, and a handful of error coins slipped through that were never supposed to exist. The story starts with the proof coins made in San Francisco. Now, proof coins are different. They're specially struck for collectors, with a mirror-like finish, sharp details, and most importantly, a mint mark. Every proof coin from San Francisco should have a bold S under the date on the front. But in 1990, something shocking happened. A small number of 1990 proof pennies were struck without the S mint mark. That's right. The mint mark was completely missing. This wasn't a minor error. It was a catastrophic oversight for the San Francisco Mint. These coins were shipped out before anyone noticed yet, and when collectors found them, the coin world exploded. Just to give you an idea of how rare this is, only a few dozen of these no S proof 1990 pennies are known to exist. They are so rare that in pristine condition, one sold at auction for an eye-popping $275,000. Now here's where things get really exciting. What if one of those rare no S proof coins somehow ended up in circulation? Or what if your rusty old 1990 penny was struck with another kind of error, like a double die or on a wrong metal planche? You'd be holding a jackpot in disguise. Let's break it down further. Even regular 1990 pennies with a double die obverse, where the date, Liberty, or In God We Trust appear doubled, can fetch $10,000 to $30,000, depending on how strong the doubling is. That's right, even in bad condition. Why? Because it's the error that makes it valuable, not the shine. And then there's the rare possibility of a wrong planche error. Imagine a 1990 penny struck on a blank meant for a foreign coin or another denomination. These mistakes are real, and coins like that have sold for $50,000 to $100,000. Add in the mystery of no mint mark or missing design elements, and you've got a coin that collectors would fight over. So what about this rusty one? Don't let the condition fool you. Yes, it's bad. Yes, it's rusty. But if the details, even faded, reveal a missing mint mark, strange weight, odd color, or off-center strike, it could still be worth a fortune. In fact, some of the most valuable coins in history were found in terrible shape, because they were real errors that slipped through the cracks unnoticed. Step 1. Grab a magnet. Is it magnetic? It shouldn't be. But if it is, it may have been struck on a steel blank, another rare error. Step 2. Weigh the coin. A standard 1990 penny should weigh about 2.5 grams. If it's much more or less, that's another sign something is wrong. Step 3. Look closely. Is there a mint mark? If it's missing and you can confirm it wasn't worn away by damage, you might have one of the rarest coins of the modern era. Right here in front of us is a 1967 Lincoln 1-cent coin. And it doesn't look like much at first glance. It's got a dark black shade, probably from years of exposure, circulation, or even something strange in the metal itself. Most people would never give it a second look. But in the world of coin collecting, especially with coins from the chaotic 1960s, looks can be very, very deceiving, because this coin might just be one of the biggest mistakes the U.S. Mint ever let slip out into the world. Let's travel back in time to 1967. The U.S. Mint was in a state of panic. Silver was in short supply, coin hoarding was rampant, and collectors were scooping up any coin with unusual features. To solve the problem, the Mint temporarily removed mint marks from all coins between 1965 and 1967. That's right. No coins from those years were supposed to show a mint mark. It was the Mint's way of calming the public, trying to make every coin look the same so people would stop hoarding certain ones. But in the middle of that chaos, things went wrong. Some 1967 pennies were struck on the wrong metal planchets. Instead of copper, they were made using metal blanks intended for dimes, nickels, or even foreign coins. If your 1967 penny has an unusual color, like this blackish shade, or if it's slightly thinner or heavier than normal, that could be a massive red flag. A red flag that says Rare Error Coin. One such 1967 Lincoln penny was confirmed to have been struck on a dime planchet. And because of that small mistake, it sold for over $150,000 at auction. And that was a coin found in circulation, not pulled from a collector's set. Now imagine this. Some experimental coins from the 60s were struck on aluminum or steel test planchets, especially when the Mint was experimenting with cheaper metals due to the rising cost of copper and silver. If your 1967 penny is unusually light, sounds different when dropped, or shows that dark surface color, it might have been one of those test strikes. These are the true unicorns of coin collecting. Almost no one knows they exist, and the few that have surfaced, they've gone for $200,000 or more. Even without a planchet error, the 1967 penny has some major die varieties and mistakes. There are documented examples of double die obverses where the lettering on the front, Liberty or In God We Trust, appears doubled under magnification. If you spot that doubling, even with a blackened, worn surface, you're suddenly looking at a value of $5,000 to $30,000, depending on how strong the error is. And we're not done yet. There are also off-center strikes, broad strikes, and clipped planchets from 1967 pennies that slipped through Mint quality control. If your coin is missing part of its rim, appears uneven, or has parts of Lincoln's head or the date cut off, that could be a mechanical strike error. These types of error coins, even in bad shape, routinely sell for $3,000 to $15,000 or more. And what about coins struck with proof dies but accidentally sent into general circulation? That's happened too. Rare and valuable. One 1967 Lincoln penny struck with unusually sharp details and mirror-like surfaces, a mistake caused by the wrong die, brought in over $75,000. And that was for a coin that had been pocketed and spent before anyone realized what it was. So don't ignore the dark color. That black shade could be from oxidation, from exposure, Or it could be the hint of a different metal composition entirely. If your coin weighs more or less than the standard 3.11 grams or sounds different when dropped on a table, you might be holding something from a secret batch, a coin meant for testing, not for public eyes.